Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network today, presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary. The best dispensary in Charlottesville is located on the downtown mall, and it's not even close. It's Skooma Boutique Dispensary, located next to Rapture Restaurant in the downtown mall. Certificates of analyses for everything in the store. Skooma Boutique Dispensary. So much I want to cover today, including the potential demise of the number one monopoly in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's the ABC, the liquor store that is a stranglehold on liquor, hard liquor business in our Commonwealth. I'm going to give you an idea of percentages from a profit standpoint and a delegate in Richmond that is looking to potentially eradicate or terminate is a better word, the ABC in our state, in our Commonwealth. A lot I want to cover today, including a former mayor of Charlottesville in a Twitter war of tremendous proportions. It's been going on for weeks now with Charlottesville Twitter sphere. We'll let you know the former Charlottesville mayor who's on a Twitter war. Glenn Youngkin, the governor of the Commonwealth, is looking to, in fact, he's put policy in play that's going to end a school mandate of mask wearing. That's going to be the lead of the show. We will also discuss on today's program a Charlottesville or a Central Virginia transportation system. This is a topic that first came up on Friday's edition of Real Talk with Supervisor Diantha McKeel and Ted Reek, the CEO of Jaunt. I learned a lot from that show. And if you want a real in-depth look on transportation in Central Virginia, how it impacts housing, how it impacts affordable housing, how it impacts counties all over Central Virginia, and what we can do to improve transportation, go to ilovecville.com and listen to the show with Ted Reek, CEO of Jaunt, and Supervisor Diantha McKeel. It is a fantastic one that Keith Smith put together. We will also talk Charlottesville Cannabis Club and a new location for the Charlottesville Cannabis Club in the Glass Building, the former location of the X Lounge, the one-time location of the Bebedero, a massive space for Matt Long, the head of the Charlottesville Cannabis Club. We will discuss Amazon packages stolen from trains. There's a new Wild West out there. And at one time, the Wild West consisted of bandits on horseback, hijacking moving trains to steal gold and precious commodities from moving trains in the Wild West. Now in 2022, bandits are not atop horses, but they're jumping trains nevertheless, and they're stealing a new kind of commodity. And that commodity is Amazon packages heading to our homes in same-day delivery fashion. That topic on today's show, along with Kyle Guy, Virginia basketball alum, signing a two-way contract with the Miami Heat, and key UVA football players returning for another season at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Judah Wickower is our director. Let's go to the two-shot, and let's welcome Judah Wickower with a friendly wave, a friendly smile, and a look of a handsome gentleman over there. Judah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Did you manage the snow well, my friend?
Yeah, it wasn't really that bad.
Not nearly as bad as the last one.
I haven't heard any news, but I don't think too many people were affected nearly as badly as the first snowpocalypse of the year.
You're 100% correct, sir. In fact, I have a statistic from Bo Sykes of CBS 19 that I retweeted yesterday on my Twitter account. Follow Jerry Miller now on Twitter. This was from Bo Sykes of CBS 19, my friends. He tweeted this yesterday, which I think you will find interesting. Only 5 homes, I should say, in Albemarle County in the city of Charlottesville as of yesterday afternoon, had lost power.
5.
Yeah.
How do you even count that?
Well, Dominion has a service map where they identify in their service map which homes are out of power. So this was from Bosike, CBS 19, 5:52 p.m. correction on Sunday evening, 5:52 p.m. on Sunday evening. He says via Twitter, here's some good news. Power outages are not a problem at this point of the winter storm. As of 5:50 p.m. this past Sunday, only 5 homes are without power in Albemarle County and 0 in Charlottesville per Dominion's map. It was a much more powdery snow, right? And a less heavy wet snow, which I think clearly had an impact on power outages and power line destruction.
That's certainly true. I think there was also less of it, and
we were more prepared.
I also think that whatever hanging branches were waiting to snap off and bring down power lines probably went down in the first storm, and so there wasn't anything left to break the connection.
I also agree with that. Judah Whitcower will participate even more on this and even more on the show today. I want to highlight something from one of our viewers, JoJo Robertson. JoJo Robertson, if you go on her Facebook page, she is doing a very generous thing of collecting blessing bags for the homeless. The bags will be put together on February 12th at 1 p.m. at Washington Park. JoJo and her team are desperate for items to be placed in these bags. She's looking for tissues, razors, juice boxes, granola bars, combs, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes, socks, and crackers that could be put in blessing bags for the homeless that will be distributed on the 12th of February at Washington Park. JoJo, I encourage you to get a hold of Carrie Rock of Do Good CVille. Carrie Rock of Do Good CVille, who may be able to help you with this blessing bag distribution. Now, Judah, I want to get to the topic of the day, and a topic that undoubtedly has got a lot of parents saying, what the heck is going on here? What the HE double hockey sticks is going on? And I'm curious of your take. We'll get to your perspective. Scott Aaronworth, Virginia Beach, welcome to the show. Glenn Youngkin, this news broke on Sunday and into Monday morning. He's now the governor. And the governor of Virginia is doing an executive order that seeks to end mask mandates in schools. On Saturday, shortly after Youngkin took office as Virginia's 74th governor, he issued 9 executive orders. One of those 9 executive orders ended a statewide COVID-19 mask mandate for kindergarten through 12th grade students beginning January 24th. So that's this coming Monday. The order says that there is no greater priority than the health and welfare of Virginia's children. It goes on to say that parents, not the government, have the fundamental right to make decisions concerning the care of their children. It calls mask mandates in schools ineffective and impractical. The reversal comes after former Governor Ralph Northam. His office said last week that any school board that ends its mask mandate would violate a state law passed last year and could be vulnerable to lawsuits. So here's what we have in a nutshell, and then we'll offer our takes, our opinions, and get yours as viewers and listeners. Scott Bandy says, hello, Judah. Former Governor Ralph Northam, mandated school boards and public school systems to have kindergarten through 12th grade students mask up. Current Governor, Glenn Youngkin, Republican versus Democrat, Youngkin the R, Northam the Democrat. Youngkin jumps into office. And remember, Youngkin won on a platform essentially of public schools. McAuliffe made the incredibly strategical error of saying parents should not dictate their children's curriculum, which is the most ridiculous statement I have ever heard. For someone who's running for office to tell parents that they should not have influence or say in their children's curriculum is absurd, and that he doubled down and tripled down on that comment. Crazy. Youngkin gets into office now, right off the get-go. I'm talking like, from a metaphorical standpoint, the first 10 minutes of being in the mansion in Richmond says it's up to parents and not school systems to determine whether their students mask up.
Don't you mean it's up to school systems and not...
No, it's up to parents.
And not the government?
No, it's up to parents. He's saying it's parents' decision to mask their students up in schools, and it's not up to the government or the school system to tell them to mask up. So it's mommies and daddies who can say or demand or insist whether their kids wear masks in schools, and not the public school system that says the kids have to wear a mask in schools. Hello, Stephanie Wells Rhodes. We miss seeing you as well. We love you, Stephanie Rhodes. I'm curious of your take, Stephanie, on this. I'm curious of your take because you have a daughter who's a teacher. You also have a large family with many children in them. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. Youngkin, who very much won because of a campaign of being a centrist. He ran by appealing to Republicans by also pulling the suburban soccer mom voter away from McAuliffe's camp. Youngkin says the mask mandate is no more starting on Monday. I'm torn on this. Perhaps there is no definitive right answer. I'm a parent. Our son's health is our most primary concern. We love this little guy, as you know, with all our heart. He's also unvaccinated. He's under 5. So we're very protective of him being unvaccinated. I'm also, as many know, the political party I'm most aligned with is that of common sense, not R, not D, but the political party of common sense. And moms and dads should have the most say in what their kids do, and not school systems and government. That being said, I'm also cautious and mindful and considerate of our frontline workers, and teachers undoubtedly are frontline workers who are unfortunately undervalued, underpaid, and underappreciated, and sending children into hallways and classrooms that are poorly ventilated, especially in the winter when you can't open the windows, not cleaned at the levels they should be, and having those children potentially passing something from Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, and the holidays to teachers and their peers at a time when Omicron is going bananas is something we must be mindful of. No right answer here. Curious of your take, and I'll give you mine.
Well, I think I agree with, on a broad sense, I agree with him that ending the mandate was a good thing. I think this is something that is better decided by school boards, parents, and teachers. And so I agree. I think that they should be making these choices, not some government entity. That being said, you're right. While kids might not be strongly affected by COVID, and I haven't heard anything about how they're affected by the Omicron variant. I would imagine it's even less than any problems they may have had with the COVID, the original. But you're right. We also have to worry about teachers catching it from kids, because just because a kid isn't showing any symptoms doesn't mean that they can't be passing it around to other people. But teachers can wear masks. I don't think taking away the mask mandate means that nobody can wear masks. I think it just means that there's no big brother looking over your shoulder saying you have to do this. So you know, I think, again, this is something that should be talked about in school boards between parents and teachers, and they should come to their own decisions. And teachers that are worried should be wearing masks.
We'll get to viewers' takes, and then I'll give you mine. I will relay this on air. I will relay this on air now. This is Mark and Crozet, Mark McKinney. With COVID-19 vaccination for children available, and he's a parent of 4, I believe, Mark, is that right? Memory serves correct? With COVID-19 vaccination for children available, I think it is an appropriate time to allow for parental choice at this point in sending their children to school wearing mask or no mask. Albemarle County has one of the highest vaccination rates in the state. Our county has a 62% vaccination rate for ages 5 to 11, yet the 7-day positivity rate is at almost 28%. Great stats right there. Our county, Albemarle, has a 62% vaccination rate for ages 5 to 11, yet the 7-day positivity rate is at almost 28% for children aged 5 to 11. Stephanie Wells Rhodes. Love Stephanie, love her family, love what she stands for. She says this: she's a mother of 2, a gamma of 1, and a mother of a teacher. If the mask is only protecting others, I feel it should be up to the parents, but it needs to be one way or the other. It should not be up to the teachers to police and take the word of an 8-year-old whether mom says they have to wear a mask or not. Teachers have enough on their plate. I agree with you, Stephanie. They should not have added responsibility in their world, certainly when they're underpaid, undervalued, and underappreciated, like our society has done with teachers. Here's my take on this. When it comes to our children, mom and dads have the first say. Someone saying to me, that's not in my house, that's not my better half, your kid has to do this, or else, that's not going to sit well with me. Now, it's different if it's outside your home. It's different if it's, and it frustrates me to say this, business related, because I'm a small government guy. But when it comes to my kid, mom and dad have the final say. And when you're a parent, it isn't until you're a parent do you realize the responsibility you have for this little human that has this huge piece of your heart that you never realized you could give to someone. I think it's certainly a parent's decision whether to mask or unmask their kid in a school. Now, that being said, our kid is in preschool and he goes to school with a mask on. Our kid is 3 and change, almost 4. And really, he hasn't known a time, and it's sad to say this, but it's factually true. He has spent over half of his life on this planet in a COVID world. Over half our son's life has been spent in a COVID world. It's so sad for me to say that. He doesn't even complain or think twice about masking up because that's frankly all he's ever known. Youngkin is making the stance. It's not up to government to determine what mommies and daddies do with their kids. There's this dichotomy of A, what is government's reach? And what parents should do. The government should not reach into the bedroom, into church, and into parenthood. The government can encourage, the government can educate, the government can engage. But when government starts reaching into church, into the bedroom, into the marriage, into parenthood, you start wondering, what is going on here? You start wondering, what is going on here? Because you then are fearful of what is next. Where else are they going to go? A good example of this, and it's so archaic now. So archaic now. At one time, the government said, who could marry who? Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Still does.
Yeah, to some extent.
To some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the government should be able to say who can marry who.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think a government should be able to say what a woman can do with her body. I don't think the government should be able to say how we practice our religion and the passion or the extent of the God we believe in. There's a reason the phrase separation of church and state exists. Do we think the government should have a say in how moms and dads raise their kids? Where does it stop? How far will it go? Youngkin has a perception issue here, a branding issue here. If Youngkin went on record in the first 10 minutes of him being in office, and Youngkin said, look, I'm not anti-mask. Look, I'm not anti-keeping COVID in check. Look, I'm not anti-teachers. Look, I'm not anti-protecting them, teachers. Instead, I'm just trying to minimize and limit the reach of our Commonwealth's government by empowering the parents and giving them the autonomy to do what they want with their children, then that would have been embraced and accepted at a different clip than what he did now. He just went in the first 10 minutes of office and said, this mandate is no more. It's a perception. It's a perception management issue. He should have said, it's not about the mask. It's not about protecting the teachers. I'm all for that. I'm all for of getting over this Omicron spike. I just want to limit our reach from a government standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I think it's better to allow people to make decisions until they can no longer make decisions, which is when the government can step in. But if school districts are capable enough, which they certainly are, of making these decisions in the best interests of their teachers and children and parents, then why not let them?
Jojo Robertson, Jerry Miller. I have a child, she says, that has asthma. During the winter, my child got so sick that my child, who is now a young adult, has to use a nebulizer and an inhaler. I do not want any chance that the child will get sick and become very ill and have the chance of getting COVID and have asthma on top of it. If my child was in a public school system that does not have masks, I will pull out my kid immediately. And that's her choice. That's her choice as a mom.
And I would assume that she would, if that came up, that she would bring that up with the school board and present her case. And that's part of the school's decision is, how do parents feel? How do their teachers feel?
Mark and Crozet. All of this comes down to the following. You reap what you sow. Make your choice and live with it. Life is about decision making every single day. Some of us make better decisions than others. And when you get out of bed, and you put your pants on and your shirt on, you're making decisions constantly. And the decisions you make will determine the outcome of that day. And life is a string or a sequence of hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions you make every 24-hour period. And before you know it, a bunch of strings and sequences become a week, a month, 6 months, a year of decision making. We should empower parents and citizens and Virginians and Charlottesvillians and Albemarle Countyans with decision-making foundations: education, engagement, data, information, statistics that help make the right decision. That's the role of the government. Here are the stats. Here's some information, some education to help you make the decision you choose to make. And then you allow voters or citizens to make what decision they want to do. It's not the role of the government to mandate, strong arm, demand people to do something. That authoritarian mentality is a frightening one.
And hard to put down.
Because you wonder where it's going to go and how far it will go. Am I wrong?
No, that's why I said it's hard to put down. Once you've got the authority to do something, why would you ever let it go? I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of with this kind of thing, mandating what people can do in their own areas. Like some guy in D.C. knows what's best for a small town school.
Like someone running for governor saying parents should not have any influence on their children's curriculum in schools.
Yeah.
All right, a couple of other topics I want to get to. Mike Signer, former mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, is in an absolute Twitter war right now. You guys probably thought I was going to say Nakia Walker. Mike Signer is in an absolute Twitter war right now with Charlottesville Twitter. Charlottesville Twitter is a very engaged and active community in the Twitter sphere. I would encourage anyone watching this program to check out Mike Signer's Twitter account, MikeSigner, former mayor of Charlottesville. This gentleman is utilizing his social platforms to insist, to question, to engage, to demand that the Charlottesville public school system offer educational opportunities to students during snow days. And he's highlighting the educational achievement gap between public schools and private schools. Private schools, education as usual during COVID. Public schools, this very uncertain and vulnerable educational infrastructure. And he's asking, why are snow days yielding or leading no school for students within the Charlottesville public school system?
Why are they going with no school on snow days?
Yeah, he's basically saying, why on snow days aren't kids in Charlottesville public school systems at least not learning virtually?
What a dick.
You say that?
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a snow day. Man, some people just have no chill.
Okay, well, I'll counter this, okay? I understand your point, okay? I get your point, and I get the teachers' points. How are they going to teach on a snow day if they can't get to school to do the teaching, right? I will say this. Parents, moms and dads are not huge fans of snow days. Moms and dads want their kids to go into school because those moms and dads need to get to work.
On snow days, I'm sure a lot of them are not going to work.
A lot of moms and dads still have to go to work regardless of the snow. They really do. Moms and dads don't look at snow days as single people, college students, teenagers, middle schoolers and high schoolers, and teachers look at snow days.
That's what we're talking about, kids.
I'm just saying, moms and dads aren't crazy about snow days. Anyway, long story short, this is what Signer's doing, former mayor of Charlottesville. He is saying that one of the reasons Glenn Youngkin got into office, he's literally tagging Glenn Youngkin. He's tagging the superintendent of city schools. He's fighting and battling with Charlottesville teachers and parents and husbands and wives of teachers. Literally on Twitter, the former mayor of Charlottesville. He's saying one of the reasons Glenn Youngkin was elected into office is because of the dysfunction within the public school systems. And he's highlighting dysfunction as no educational opportunities, even virtual ones, during snowy situations. He's saying, Mike Signer, how can we not be prioritizing education on snow days when our public school students are so far behind private schools? He's saying we should maximize efficiency with any day possible to close the achievement gap between public and private school students. And if we don't do that, we're doing a disservice to our students. He's saying these snow days should be like normal school days, but virtual.
I disagree.
Your take.
Well, first of all,
Mike Signer on Twitter.
First of all, this is Virginia, not Minnesota or somewhere. How many snow days do we regularly have?
We've had a lot lately. My kid's been in school 5 days over the last 30.
So you're saying they've had 25 snow days?
Well, you got to realize part of that was Christmas break.
That's not snow days. That's Christmas vacation.
I'm just saying a lot.
That has nothing whatsoever to do with snow days.
That's a fair counterpoint.
So what I'm saying is that what do we even have? Like, did we have any snow days last year? I know Trey wasn't in school then.
Last year was tough because last year was so dramatically impacted by COVID. From March 2020.
Okay, well let's forget COVID.
From March 2020 until now, COVID, you got to be in agreement, has really dramatically impacted school.
Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about snow days, and my point is how these two snow days so far. They might be the exception to the rule. We might not have any more snow days. And I went to high school in Maine. We had snow days, not all the time, but frequently enough. And you know what they do? They tack the 5 or 6 days that we had snow days onto the end of the year. That's not a big deal. That's like 1 week.
Does it surprise you at all? I've made this point before on the show. Does it surprise you at all that with all the virtual schooling infrastructure in play now, we're all in agreement that's watching and listening on every social platform possible. We're all in agreement that educational infrastructure from a digital standpoint is more robust than ever.
Certainly, but that's also different from you saying that parents want their kids to go to school even on snow days.
I don't think all parents do. I'm saying Signer is saying.
Okay.
But I will speak for our household, and it's a good point that you're making here. Our household is a huge fan of our kids going to school.
Yeah, but you're also talking about snow days. Snow days are, by definition, days when kids don't go to school. So what we're talking about would be kids schooling virtually.
So you're saying if kids are schooling virtually, then it's basically like still a snow day for their parent because they're at home.
Exactly.
And a parent's got to stay there and watch them.
The parents still have to deal with the kids.
That's a good point.
Like, I mean, usually the reason for snow days is that school districts don't want to send buses out filled with kids on icy roads. I mean, as a parent, I wouldn't want my kid getting on a bus when there's a chance that the roads are going to be iced up and dangerous.
Good counterpoint. So I'll take it. I'll counter that counterpoint. What Judah's saying is a snow day, even if the kid is learning from at home through Zoom or through the computer, it's likely going to impact the parent's work schedule regardless, because they're going to have to stay there and watch their kid at home.
Somebody's going to have to watch the
Someone's going to have to watch the kid, depending on the age of leaving them alone. That's a great point. I will counter that counterpoint by saying this, and then we'll head to the next topic. Scott Bandy, we'll get to your comment here. How about the education piece of utilizing every day possible to try to close the educational achievement gap that COVID has magnified?
Okay, but like I said, in schools that regularly deal with snow days, they actually have like a week or two set aside at the end of the school year that's kind of like a flex period. It's like the end of school is going to be whatever it is, the 5th of June, unless we have 5 snow days, in which case we have a week set aside where we can add those days to the end of the year so that the kids are getting the time that they need.
So your comment is Signer, chill.
Yeah. Like
Signer, take a deep breath.
You know what I loved hearing yesterday? Kids out playing and enjoying themselves. It's snow. Let them have some fun. I mean, just stop being a stick in the mud.
Judah Wickower, bringing it today. Well said. Telling the former mayor of Charlottesville to stop being a stick in the mud.
Yeah, seriously.
I like it, Judah. I like it a lot. What's your take, parents? What's your take, moms and dads? Should kids be learning virtually on snow days, especially kids in the public school system? Because undoubtedly they could be educationally behind their private school peers because of COVID. It's a good topic. It's a good question.
Some people forget what it's like to be just fun and carefree and like a decent person.
I think sometimes life does that to you, though.
I think so.
Life can jade and demoralize and disturb and depress and discuss and wear someone down like a number 2 pencil.
It certainly can, but taking fun away from kids, that's just...
Don't take fun away from kids, Judah says. Oh, God. I love it. Oh, man. Well, Alex, we'll get you here on the show. You know what, Alex? Why don't we get you on the show here? Let's get Urpí on the set here. A lot of topics we're not going to get to today. Yeah. We got our traditional Tuesday 1:45, so we got to be mindful of that. And that one's going to be via Zoom today, J-Dubs. Speaking of Zoom, that's going to be via Zoom. Alex Urpí, CEO of Emergent Financial Services. You got a take on the Youngkin mask mandate termination?
Look, I mean, I've talked multiple times before about how my philosophy is you want most government authority to be closest to you, local, then state, then federal. So this seems to be in line with that. In other words, your local community will know best, given how many cases you have out there, how much is spreading in your school, will know best what's the right way to go about that. So that seems to make a lot of sense.
Your take on snow days?
Agreed.
Yeah, we're all in agreement on that one.
Yeah, I'm with Judah on the snow days. My suspicion is, and look, looking at the state of public education, I don't think the issue of a gap, if there is indeed, and I don't know the numbers on this, but if there is indeed a gap between public schooling and private schooling in terms of educational outcomes for kids, I don't think that problem can be solved by a couple extra days of virtual learning for kids. Those problems go way deeper than,
Exactly.
put them in school for 3 more days out of the year, and suddenly you're going to close that gap.
Right.
Scott Bandy, snow days, some Virginia localities, mindful of circumstance, utilize particular snow days to call for teacher administrative work days. That is, move up these scheduling. Scott Bandy, we love when you watch the program. All right, this is the topic I really want to talk about, is ABC stores and a bill that Delegate Nick Freitas is circulating. I'm going to read you guys the bill, and then we'll talk about it. So, Nick Freitas, delegate, is looking to abolish the ABC. He's proposing a bill which will legalize online orders from your favorite distillery. Legalizing online ordering from your favorite distillery improves margins for distillers.
Big time.
And it also takes government interference away from what is, we, viewers and listeners, have agreed, the biggest monopoly in the Commonwealth. When we were talking during the last snowpocalypse about what the biggest monopoly was, we were highlighting Dominion Electric, and very quickly, I believe it was you, Scott Bandy, said, no, it's the ABC that is the biggest monopoly.
If I'm correct, I think the state of Virginia made more money from the ABC in 2020 than it did from Texas. And I could be wrong about having read that somewhere.
Alcohol sales in fiscal year 2019 generated $500 million in state revenue, $198 million in profits for retail stores at ABC stores, $223 million in taxes on alcohol sold in those stores, and $80 million from taxes on wine and beer sold in other stores.
So is this going to break the monopoly, or is it just going to allow distillers to sell online?
Well, if distillers,
those are two very different things.
If
That's
distillers, that is a good point. And right now it's in the early stages of the bill. Right now he's trying to, he says this via Twitter. Abolishing the ABC is just the beginning. I'm also carrying HB 300, which will legalize online orders from your favorite distillery. So I'll give you the here's both. Virginia Delegate Nick Freitas is on a mission to do away with state-run liquor stores. He filed a bill this week that calls for Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority, ABC, to get rid of all real estate used as government stores. The bill would also support eligible private businesses obtaining a license to sell packaged hard liquor. Currently, only state-run retail stores can sell distilled liquor. Freitas is a Republican who represents Madison, Orange, and parts of Culpeper counties. He says the agency is a relic of the past. Two more paragraphs. He says prohibition ended nearly 90 years ago. There is absolutely no reason to maintain a state monopoly on the sale of alcohol. Virginia is one of 17 states with government-run alcohol sales. He wants to privatize booze.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I think it's great.
There are
Makes sense.
way too many goofy laws out there. I mean, I've lived in Savannah, Georgia, where you couldn't buy alcohol from a store on a Sunday.
Yeah.
But you could go to a bar and drink on a Sunday.
I remember when my buddy, Connecticut Dave Henry, and I were visiting his brother in Wake Forest, Winston-Salem, and on the way up of that debaucherous trip we took to Wake Forest at Winston-Salem, we were driving through areas of Lynchburg, and we were looking for some reason, after a 3.5-day bender, to pick up tall boys in the Lynchburg area, and we could not buy them because they prohibited even beer sales on Sunday in that area. That was 2001, 2002, circa that area. So
Those
look,
are old-timey laws.
we're all small government people here. I would say, I think that's safe.
Small, yep.
Okay, you are as well. I know that as well. The abolishment of ABC stores and allowing distilleries to have licenses to sell direct to consumer via digital platforms. Anywhere you want to go, Urpí, on that topic.
No, it makes complete sense. I mean, because right now, let's face it, the ABC is a scheme right now. It's a profit-making scheme for the state government because it does nothing to actually encourage temperance. Like, the only possible reason for its existence would be if you were under the impression that it would encourage temperance, meaning people not drinking too much. But as we all know from 2020, I don't know about you, but I was getting advertisements.
We were drinking more.
No, I was getting advertisements all the time from ABC, emailing me, sending me flyers in the store, encouraging me to drink alcohol. So the idea that the ABC is like
I saw the same.
keeping us in check. No, the ABC is just like damn state-run gambling. It encourages you to do it because the state government would love to make your money off that. So all it is right now is a scheme whereby they charge 100% uptake on over 100% profit margin on anything they get from a distillery, repackage it, and then they don't even repackage it. They take the distiller's packaging, charge them over 100% for it, and then stick it on their shelves. So it's an absurdity. I mean, unfortunately, the fact that it is a profit-making scheme and not a legitimate
Why would they
reason to have it, they'll never get rid of it. I somehow highly doubt that this bill
do we
will be
even
passed.
have a reason why there are ABC stores and our government selling alcohol?
Well, I think it's a byproduct of prohibition.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
relic.
no, but I mean, you can buy beer and wine at Kroger or Food Lion or wherever.
You're
So
saying, why is it not
what-
controlled beer and wine as well?
I'm just saying, what is the difference between beer, wine, and alcohol?
That's a great question. Viewers and listeners, if you have the answer, put it in the feed. I'll read this directly from the ABC website, abc.virginia.gov. You can find this information. This is a good stat. Amid the lingering COVID-19 pandemic, Virginia ABC continued record-breaking achievements in fiscal year 2021. Virginia ABC reached gross revenues of $1.4 billion with a B and contributed $616 plus million to the Commonwealth for designated state programs and services. The resiliency and commitment to excellence by Virginia ABC employees to adapt to the demands of the constantly changing environment was the key to the authority reaching its goals once again. So this is in a lot of ways rhetoric. ABC rhetoric justifying its importance.
Their great achievement is selling more alcohol to
Yeah.
people
When we're trapped at home.
Well, and like, it's an understandable if a private company said that, but do I really want my state government to be looking at ways to have people drink more alcohol? I'm not sure that's exactly what I want my state government's purpose to be.
I'll play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Anyone that's watching this program realizes that I want the power and the autonomy to be in the hands of the little guy and not of the government. Anyone who watches that knows that's my ideology. But for the sake of a talk show, I will say this. If the ABC continues to exist, that $1.4 billion in gross revenues, $616 plus million was allocated to Virginia designated state programs and services. Would the revenue start diminishing to state programs and services if the ABC is abolished? And would it stay instead in the coffers and the accounts of private businesses as opposed to going to government-funded needs, resources, and priorities? Good example is, terrifying example, but a good example, is lottery goes to public school systems. Weed, it's crazy to say this, weed is going to go to public schools and children. Revenue and taxes from weed is going to go to public schools and kids. If you abolish the ABC,
Okay,
will you diminish the coffers?
Here's the point, though.
Okay.
If marijuana is going to go towards the schools, it's not going to be coming from, let's call it an XYZ cannabis store run by the government. So why does alcohol need to be sold by the government? Is there any reason to believe that if it's sold in grocery stores, that somehow they're going to lose on that income?
Well, what the point I was making, and you know where I stand on this, the point I was making, if it was direct to consumer from Silverback Distillery to Judah's House in Albemarle County,
There's less money to be made.
less money to be made by the state entity, is what I'm saying.
How so, though? Is it going to be taxed less?
It would
So
be,
they'll only get the tax. Right now, if you think about it, right, the state government gets not just the tax revenue, they get the profit,
they get the profit.
which
Yeah.
can be at times
Substantial.
substantial.
Yeah,
In other
substantial.
words, I've heard as much as 100% markup. In other words, they're selling things in ABC store that is double what they paid the distiller for because they are literally the only person who's authorized to sell it. So you had that, they would lose. The tax they would keep, but the profit that ABC makes goes away because it's being sold.
They're keystoning the bottle of booze. So if they buy the bottle of the booze from the distiller, then you're looking at a Keystone, which is 100% markup, or even in some cases 2x, 3x markup. And that margin, that delta, is staying with the government, and then the government is allocating it to certain endeavors that the government is trying to pursue.
Are they really marking it up? I mean,
Oh my God. Yeah, hugely.
No, but I mean, are
Because
there-
that's the monopoly.
But are there states where you can go and buy like a bottle of whatever that is being sold for $35?
It's funny you brought that up. I had this conversation with my
$18?
father-in-law. Yes. It's funny you brought this up. Had this conversation with my father-in-law not even a day ago. So he lives in Long Island, and he's a fan of Hendrick's gin. And he can go, they call them packaging stores in New York, Long Island.
That's what they call them in New Jersey, where we had to go and get our beers when we visit.
There was at a time where VMV Brands, our advertising agency, we were taking a week trip every 90 days to service clients in New Jersey. And that's when we had to chase a buck when the business was still growing, as opposed to now when it was more established. And we decided not to chase a buck by taking week trips out of state that were very difficult to do, especially away from our family. Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. Then I'll get out of the way and get y'all's take here, your take. In Long Island, my father-in-law, who's a fan of Hendrick's, knows which packaging stores sells Hendrick's at the most competitive price. It's not all priced the same. So his packaging store of choice has the best price for Hendrick's and will drive past other ones to go to this one to get the big bottle of Hendrick's at a lower price. Further, to put it in perspective, another example, and it doesn't apply necessarily, but it is an example. My mother-in-law, cigarettes, goes to a certain store to pick up her cigarettes because they're priced differently than other stores. Now, Virginia, cigarettes are competitively priced, not a monopoly like booze. I'm going to get out of your way here, anywhere you want to go on this, Alex, with pricing of ABC and the abolishment of this monopoly.
And remember, it's a worse impact on local distillers than it is on national brands, because the national brands, right, or international in some cases, obviously where they're coming from. There is a certain competitive element such that Virginia ABC, and I've seen this, can't sell, as an example, can't sell like a Hennessy's that much more expensive than one state over, right? But from what it seems to me, I think there are certain limitations in terms of shipping alcohol interstate, such that it obviously is able to charge these massive margins on local distillers. So that's who I would imagine it's hurting the most. I don't think the big brands are being hurt as much. In terms of the money going into the coffers, the issue with all these things, I think, is twofold. That presumes, right, that the state is a better arbiter of what to do with this money, a better decider of what to do with this additional profit than would be the private business itself, combined with the local economy. In other words, more money flowing into the local area of Charlottesville, Albemarle. If you just think of Charlottesville, Albemarle distillers, the assumption of keeping it with ABC store is the state in Richmond knows better what to do with this additional profit than the combination of local small business owners and the local community of Charlottesville and Albemarle. I think that itself is a dubious distinction. I'm not sure I would argue that Richmond knows better what's better for Albemarle and Charlottesville than people living in Albemarle and Charlottesville.
Nicholas, right? Go ahead.
Secondly, it leads you, I think, back to the disturbing thing about the state being in, as an example, gambling, which is gambling in the lottery funds schools, which means you have created a perverse incentive whereby the state government has a incentive to encourage people, often the poorest people in our community,
the ones living on the financial margin are playing the lotto.
Margins to play the lotto, which is a losing proposition for all of them. And you would sit there and say, and if anything, the government should be discouraging gambling. But unfortunately, they have put themselves in a position where they encourage gambling because it's going to the schools. Isn't that wonderful? So, I think transparency is always better. I think you're in a much better boat if The state government just needs to come out and say, here's what it costs to run the schools. I need to tax you X in order to do this. Everyone knows exactly how much is coming from where. You know where the taxes need to be to get you to this amount. And then we have to decide, is this a level of government spending that we want, or is it too high or too low? But with all these little pieces coming in from here, from there, plus we all know money's fungible, right? Meaning the money can come from a bunch of different places and it can be earmarked here, but that just means you're not using it somewhere else, right? So having it come from all these different places, I think just confuses the issue and leads to less transparency rather than more.
Judah Whitcower, jump in here.
Yeah, I agree. When you've got the government actively, I mean, should the government be advertising for anything? I mean, that's just absurd. Government should not be in charge of businesses ever.
Neil Williamson on Twitter.
That's my take.
we know that's your take. Neil Williamson on Twitter says this. Neil Williamson, follow him on Twitter. Check out Free Enterprise Forum. The Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority released its unaudited draft financial results for fiscal year 2021 to the Virginia Department of Accounts and the Auditor of Public Accounts, showing gross revenue of $1.4 billion, up $163 million over fiscal year 2020. He continues, Virginia ABC has four main sources for revenue: sales of distilled spirits at stores, A, state-imposed taxes collected on beer and wine sales, violation penalties, and licensing fees. I'll repeat those again. Great stuff from Neil. The Virginia ABC has four main sources for revenue: sales of distilled spirits at stores, state-imposed taxes collected on beer and wine sales, that's 2. 3, violation penalties. I hate violation penalties as sources of revenue because that encourages us to go find violations and penalties. Good Lord. And then licenses and fees, number 4. And then he says, Neil, you are, I love you, Neil Williamson. Hendrick's Gin, 750 milliliter at Total Wine in D.C. or Maryland. This is a great stat, Neil. I'm retweeting this, Neil. Hendrick's Gin, 750 milliliter bottle at Total Wine in D.C. or Maryland is $32.99. At the Virginia ABC, it's $36.99. A $4 markup at the Virginia ABC versus the DC's packaging store, Total Wine. $4 markup is over 10%, and it's just because of an invisible line.
I know. And let's face it, that's a national brand in which there is pressure to keep that markup down. Now imagine if it's something that can't easily be sold in another state. Yeah. If you got a local guy that he can't just go and say, hey, yeah, I'll ship all my stuff to Maryland and sell it in Maryland stores.
And put this in perspective. I'll put this in perspective for you. We'll reference cannabis. We learned this on one of our talk shows. Folks were driving to DC to buy their cannabis because their cannabis laws were essentially way laxer than Virginia cannabis laws. And then they were crossing this imaginary line and then just coming to Virginia to enjoy them. So these archaic laws that are happening are literally costing the state revenue because people, whether they want to admit it or not, are capitalists and they're looking for the best price possible and will find it regardless.
Exactly. People are going to maximize their surplus. I mean, in this case, the fact that the ABC has the monopoly is, strangely enough, they're not. I don't think they're losing as much as if it was just a taxing situation or a difference in latch laws. What's happening here, obviously, is that they're just transferring. This is just the ABC monopoly is just a flat-out wealth transfer from a local distillery to the state, essentially.
And reiterate the small business and the small guy, not the one that's like the, the big brand that's owned. What's the big brand? Diageo? Diageo is I'm going to look up which brands are under management with Diageo liquor. Talk to us about the little guy and how it's impacted.
If you think about it, right? You take like a big one, like Bacardi rum, sold in every state in the country. There's only so much that Virginia that the ABC, right, can up the price. There's only so much of a profit margin that ABC can put on Bacardi rum. It's sold everywhere, right? But Virginia ABC goes to a local guy and says, there's difficulty. I believe there are a lot of challenges in terms of being able to ship what's it called, interstate alcohol, particularly with certain states. So Virginia ABC has these people over barrel because they basically say, I really don't care that I'm going to give you 100% markup on your goods and services, that you're basically going to get half what I'm going to make on this bottle of liquor because you have no other place to go. You can't sell it anywhere else. Your prime market to sell this liquor is here in Virginia. It's here in your local community, and I'm going to charge you 100% markup on this. So you're basically, it's a transfer of wealth. That's really what it is. It's not a tax. A tax is like what we say, 5%, 10%. When you talk about 100% markup, you're basically saying, the ABC is saying, I'm transferring wealth that you would make directly into my hands.
Vanessa Parkhill agrees with you. She loves your comment, why do we assume the government knows better what to do with our dollars? Nicholas Urpí's dropping some knowledge here. He says, abolish the ABC is the best news I've heard in 2022. The ABC doesn't generate revenue for the state. It's a state extortion racket. From what I remember, wine and beer were not the choice of most Americans and were not responsible for the drunkenness that prohibition advocates were trying to curtail. And he closes, cognac is $10 more in ABC than in New Jersey. And that's a Courvoisier brand. Saying $10 more than ABC than a packaging store in New Jersey. The abolishment of the ABC is going to empower the mom and pop distillery. The abolishment of the ABC will create more jobs for the mom and pop distillery. The abolishment of the ABC will likely drive more local taxable revenue for the municipalities where the mom and pop distillery is located within.
Oh, yes.
Okay, certainly there. And the abolishment of the ABC will certainly take the power away from brands like Diageo and bring it or return it back to the mom and pop. To put in perspective, Diageo owns Guinness, Tanqueray, Bailey's, Captain Morgan's, Ciroc, Kettle One, Smirnoff, Don Julio, Windsor, Buchanan's, J&B, Crown Royal, and Johnny Walker.
Wow.
That's one company.
I didn't know they had all those.
That's economies of scale and vertical integration at its
The only
finest.
thing is we have to caveat, I would caveat your will to would.
What's that?
I would caveat your use of the verb will to the use of the verb would.
Would.
Because the issue is, I think it's highly, I don't want to be pessimist, this seems to me highly unlikely to pass, because unfortunately, I think both parties, for the most part, in Richmond, have a very vested interest in leaving this as it is, just too much money is made.
You think? Did they not say the same, though? And we have a 1:45 Zoom, so that's in 7 minutes. So we got to get ready for that. You may want to call that up on the Mac over there to get ready, the Zoom link. That way we're not caught off guard. Didn't they say the same thing with weed, with cigarettes? The legalization of marijuana for years, if not decades, in Virginia was vehemently opposed by Big Tobacco. Because Big Tobacco was concerned if weed was legalized, that would erode market share of tobacco. But at the same time that Big Tobacco was lobbying Virginia elected officials to not legalize weed, they were creating the infrastructure to produce weed because they knew eventually it would happen. Isn't it a similar scenario there?
In this case, though, it's different because they're literally, we have literal money flowing in. In other words, you just said it yourself, right? Big Tobacco was playing both sides.
Yeah.
So there is a point at which Big Tobacco was like, we actually don't mind this as much as we did before. Here, I mean, what's the other financial side? Like, who in the state government has an incentive to cut
cut the ABC.
To cut the profit.
To empower mom and pop.
Well, I mean, it's literally just the dollars. I mean, what do you say, 1.4 in revenue?
1.4 billion.
1.4 billion in revenue. I mean, who in state government wants to cut that out of the budget and then have to, like, let's face it, they would have to raise taxes to then, or either cut the budget or raise
find
taxes,
a new source of taxes.
Find a new source of income. I mean, they're not going to want to do that. There's too much money in it to be made.
It's a good topic. I would love to see or be a fly in the wall with that discussion of how Richmond, how the governor's office would handle the abolishment of ABC. Because we know it's a relic and it's archaic. We know it's extortion and a racket. And we know the people that are suffering are voters and citizens and distillers alike. Mm-hmm. Very good topic right there. Anything you want to add?
No, just that I feel like abolishing the ABC stores would have an incredible benefit. I mean, if the only argument for it is that they're
funding state agencies or endeavors.
If the only argument for it is that they're massively inflating prices and making bank, well, what about if we start investing in our own local businesses? Mm-hmm. If distillers can start making a larger margin, that means more taxes. If they start
more jobs,
if they start
payroll taxes,
if they start doing better and start bringing in more employees, that's like you just said. That's more employment, more taxes, and I don't see a downside.
Alex, anything you want to add?
I mean, this is a classic case of what they call diffuse costs and concentrated benefits. And you can see it in numerous things. And what that just means simply is the benefits of the ABC are very largely concentrated among a small group, namely the state government. And among that small group, it's a very large benefit. The cost is spread out among lots of people. So each of us only bears each of us bears that little $4 cost of the ABC. So each of us has a very small incentive to go out there and march. I mean, are we three going to go march on Richmond for the end of the ABC? Probably not, right? It's not worth our time to go do that. But it's worth a lot of time and effort for the people who are involved in ABC and for the state government to put in the effort to keep it there, because they have a very large benefit that is very concentrated amongst them. We have a very large cost that is spread amongst a lot of people, none of whom probably has the financial incentive to go out there and really push for this.
Alex Urpí dropping knowledge. Judah Wickhauer dropping knowledge. The I Love CVille Show. Topics like this in an approachable setting. Today y Mañana, Alex and Xavier Show, presented by Emergent Financial Services. Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. My friend, what's on the docket?
Dallas Kirby, he's got a local soft wash, DNA soft wash company. And he's going to come on. So small business owner, going to come on. Great. My dad has spoken to him a couple of times, enthusiastic guy. So he's going to come on, tell us a little bit about his business. So we'll learn a little bit about not just what he does, but how he navigates this area, especially going into a season. I think after all this snow and dripping down people's houses, I think we're going to be looking for some soft wash in the spring.
A topic we may want to discuss, and we got 90 seconds for this, so I'll bring this up later. Local radio has reached out to the I Love CVille Show about carrying the I Love CVille Show on the radio dial. Ooh. Whether or not we will do this is a topic perhaps we will consider on the show. Obviously, they get localized content that they can monetize without much labor output.
That's what we in Spanish, that's how you do, ay, qué interesante.
But while the endeavor is interesting or appealing to me, it may require us to make some changes that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. Maybe that topic tomorrow on the show. Alex, very well done.
Thank you.
CEO of Emergent Financial Services.
Always fun with you too.
Judah Wickhauer, our director, our Zoom in T-minus 90 seconds. Thank you for joining us. Judah, well done. I'm Jerry. You guys have a good afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow at 10:15. Take care. Excellent work.